What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Bible with Butzy. Today we're going to be talking about Judges chapter 3. If you haven't checked out our other videos, Judges Overview, Judges chapter 1, Judges chapter 2, there'll be links to those at the end of this video. You can also check out our channel and get caught up. But this one today, boy. This is one of the best chapters in all of Judges. I love it. There's going to be these enemies in the land that the Israelites are now occupying. They're tests from the Lord to these people, to the Israelite people, to see whether or not they're going to follow God. In verse 7, it says the people were doing what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and this dude named Othnia comes and delivers them. The Israelite people realize that they're messing up, and so then they call to God to say, hey, save us. And God sends Othnia. And they're good for 40 years. Othnia dies, and then of course they just go back to doing their own dumb thing, which, come on, Israelites. And then we get to Ehud. Yes. This is one of those stories I can't even believe is in the Bible, because it's just, it's nuts. Okay, so let me set the stage here. So you got the king of Moab. And this guy, he's leading one of those nations that's oppressing the Israelite people, right? They're in their despair. They're worshiping these gods. They're doing all these things they shouldn't. And then they realize, oh, wait, we probably should go back to the God who delivered us, right? Okay, so that's where the Israelites are. And they cry out once again. And they say, okay, God, we need another judge. Othnia was a boss. Can you send someone else? Well, he sends Ehud. So let me set this up for you because it's just insane. Here's what happens. Ehud goes to have an audience with the king, right? So he somehow figures out how to get close to the king. And the text just mentions offhand that, didn't intend that pun, but you'll see why. It's a pun here in a second. That Ehud was the son of Gera, the Benjaminite, a left-handed man. They say that in verse 15. That's going to be very important. So they're doing this whole thing where they worship other gods and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. The king says, worship these gods, blah, blah, blah. And then Ehud says, yo, king, I got something I want to talk with you about, all secret-like. And so the king's like, oh, yeah, come up to my chambers. And so he comes up to his chambers. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, the guards are like, whoa, dude, we're not going to let you talk to the king by yourself without frisking you. And so he does. But here's the interesting thing, and I want to show you this. So this guy said he was a left-handed man, right? So this was back in times when you had swords and bows and arrows and that type of thing. And most people were right-handed, right? So when you drew a sword, you had a sword on the left side of your body, and you drew it with your right hand, and you'd ha-ha! And you'd fight like this. Left-handed people were they were considered less than, and he didn't even let on he was left-handed. Well, here's the thing. Because they were so looked down upon it, they didn't even think that this dude was left-handed because they didn't even ask. Turns out that they just frisked this side and they left this side completely open. But since he was left-handed, he drew from the right side. So they didn't even discover he had this sword. It gets this king alone, this evil king alone. I can only imagine what he says to this guy. He draws his sword because the guards didn't catch it and he was alone with the king of Moab. The king was unarmed, probably. And he shoves it right into his gut. Get this. Turns out the king was massively fat. The reason why that's important is because he was so fat, the Bible tells us that the sword went straight into his gut. He literally lost the sword in the guy's skin flaps. It just swallowed the sword whole. And then Ehud booked it out of there. So that was funny because he just all right, peace. Here's another thing that happens. These guards, they go and they say, okay, wait a sec. Why is this meeting taking so long? And they go there and they start smelling something and they're like, okay, I guess the king's kind of doing his business. Maybe we should just not barge in on him. Turns out that when this guy died, he just completely pooped himself. And so they thought he was pooping and he was dead. So it took him a long time to go in there and find the guy. And then they found him dead. And by that time, Ehud ran back to the Israelites, rallied them. They came back, freed themselves from the Moabites, and then they had an awesome reign of 80 years where they were doing good and following the Lord. And then, right before chapter 4, we get this teaser of a verse. Try memorizing this verse, Judges 3:31, Shamgar. After him, Ehud, was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad. And he also saved Israel. Yeah, so just casually picked up an ox goad, which was just like this old wooden like farmer's tool, and just wrecked 600 Philistines with it. I bet you didn't realize this stuff was in the Bible, honestly. It's unbelievable.